Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to another inspiring English learning story. Today we will talk about a man whose courage changed the world, Nelson Mandela. As you listen, you will not only learn English, but also learn about hope, forgiveness, and strength. So take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin this beautiful journey together. Can you repeat after me? I can learn English. I can change my life. Say it again. I can learn English. I can change my life. Beautiful. Nelson Mandela was born in a small village in South Africa in 1918. His full name was Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, but everyone called him Madiba, a respectful name from his tribe. His early life was simple. He looked after cattle, played with friends, and listened to stories around the fire. His childhood might sound like any other, but his destiny was extraordinary. Now listen carefully and repeat this sentence with me. Every great journey begins with a small step. Good. Mandela's first steps were in that quiet village, but his heart was already full of big dreams. When Mandela went to school, something interesting happened. His teacher gave him the name Nelson. At that time, it was common for African children to receive English names in school. So from that day, Rolihlahla became Nelson. Can you imagine? A simple classroom moment that gave the world one of the most famous names in history. Mandela loved to learn. He was curious about everything. He studied hard and respected his teachers. Learning gave him power. Not power over others, but power over his own mind. Let's practice a new word, education. Say it slowly, education. Education means knowledge, and knowledge is freedom. Repeat this sentence. Education gives me freedom. Excellent. As Mandela grew older, he began to see something unfair around him. South Africa was divided by a cruel system called apartheid. The word apartheid means separation in Afrikaans, one of South Africa's languages. It was a system that separated people by the color of their skin. White people had most of the power, the land, the money, and the opportunities. Black people, like Mandela, had very few rights. They couldn't vote. They couldn't live where they wanted. They couldn't even go to some schools or beaches. Mandela could not stay silent. He said to himself, "This is wrong. I must do something." Repeat this line. I must do something. Very good. Because change always starts when one person says, enough. In his young adult years, Mandela went to university and studied law. There, he met other students who also wanted to fight against injustice. Together they dreamed of a free South Africa, a country where everyone, black or white, could live together in peace. Mandela was brave, intelligent and strong, but he was also kind and calm. He believed that real strength comes from love, not hate. Let me tell you a small story. Once Mandela was walking in the street when a white policeman stopped him for no reason. The officer spoke rudely and insulted him. Most people would have shouted back. But Mandela didn't. He looked at the officer and said quietly, "I respect you as a human being, but I do not accept injustice." Then he walked away. This moment shows who Mandela was, respectful but fearless. Let's practice some vocabulary from this part. Justice, fairness, doing what is right. Injustice, unfairness. When people are treated badly, courage, bravery. Doing something even when you are afraid. Now repeat after me. Justice means fairness. Injustice means unfairness. Courage means doing something even when I'm afraid. Excellent. You're learning with Mandela's story. And every sentence you speak makes your English stronger. In the 1940s, Mandela joined the African National Congress, or ANC, a political organization that fought against apartheid. He became one of its young leaders. They held peaceful protests, wrote letters, and gave speeches demanding equality. Mandela's words touched people's hearts. He didn't want violence, he wanted justice through peace. But the government didn't listen. Instead, they arrested people who spoke out. Imagine how it felt. You want fairness, but you're punished for asking for it. Still, Mandela never gave up. He said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Let's say that together. It always seems impossible until it's done. Those words have traveled all over the world because they remind us that no matter how hard something feels, learning English, changing your life or fighting injustice, you can do it if you don't give up. By the 1950s, Mandela had become a lawyer. He opened South Africa's first black law firm with his friend Oliver Tambo. They helped poor people who were treated unfairly. Imagine the courage it took to stand up to the system every day. Mandela and Tambo worked long hours, but never lost hope. Mandela often said, "I am not free until all my people are free." Repeat that. I am not free until all my people are free. Do you see the lesson here? Mandela wasn't fighting just for himself. He fought for everyone. And that is what made him special. Let's pause for a moment. I want you to think, what does freedom mean to you? Is it speaking your mind? Is it being respected? Is it learning what you love? Whatever it means, remember, your words, your choices, and your education can make you free. Say this with me. I am learning English to open new doors in my life. Beautiful. That's the spirit. Before we move to the next part, let's remember 3 big lessons from Mandela's early life. 1. Education gives you power. 2. Respect yourself and others. 3. Stand up for what is right even when it's difficult. And now, my friend, you have already walked with Mandela through his childhood and his first steps toward becoming a leader. This is only the beginning of his story, and of your English journey too. When we left off, Nelson Mandela was a young lawyer, full of courage and hope. He had already seen too much unfairness in his country, but he refused to give up. He kept studying, speaking, and fighting peacefully for what was right. Yet as the years passed, things in South Africa grew even worse. The apartheid government created more and more laws that separated people. Black people had to carry special identification cards called passbooks. If they forgot them, they could be arrested. They couldn't vote. They couldn't live where they wanted. They were treated as strangers in their own land. Mandela knew this was wrong. He and his friends in the ANC decided they had to take stronger action. They organized protests, boycotts, and marches. Mandela traveled around the country, speaking to crowds of people. His voice became a symbol of hope. He said things like, "We want freedom, not revenge." Can you repeat that? We want freedom, not revenge. Good. Because that sentence carries a powerful lesson. Fighting for justice doesn't mean hating your enemies. It means believing in fairness for everyone, but the government didn't see it that way. They began to fear Mandela's influence. They banned him from speaking in public, attending meetings, and even leaving his city. But Mandela didn't stop. He worked secretly, always finding new ways to share his message. Let's practice some useful vocabulary here. Protest. When people come together to show they disagree with something. Boycott. To stop buying or using something as a form of protest. Banned. Officially not allowed. Now repeat after me. A protest is when people stand up for their rights. A boycott is when we refuse to support something unfair. If I am banned, I'm not allowed to do something. Excellent. These are real words that Mandela lived every day. In 1955, Mandela helped organize something called the Congress of the People, where thousands of people gathered to write the Freedom Charter, a document that said, "South Africa belongs to all who live in it." Those words sound simple, but they were revolutionary at that time. The government called it treason. They arrested Mandela and 155 other leaders, accusing them of trying to overthrow the state. Imagine being put in jail for simply saying, "Everyone deserves equality." Still, Mandela stayed calm. During the long and difficult trial, which lasted several years, he used every chance to speak about justice. Many people began to see him not as a troublemaker, but as a hero. Let's stop for a moment. I want you to repeat this sentence. A hero is someone who stands for what is right, even when it's hard. Perfect. That's exactly who Mandela was becoming. But things were about to change again. In 1960, something terrible happened, the Sharpeville massacre. During a peaceful protest, police opened fire on the crowd, killing 69 people. The whole world was shocked. Mandela was heartbroken. For the first time, he began to think that peaceful protest alone might not be enough. The government had banned the ANC completely, making it illegal. Mandela had to go underground. That means he had to hide and live secretly to avoid being arrested again. Let's repeat. To go underground means to live in hiding. Great. That's exactly what Mandela did. He disguised himself, changed his clothes, and moved from place to place. People started calling him the Black Pimpernel because he was always escaping the police. But even while hiding, Mandela kept studying and learning. He said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Say that with me. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Yes, and remember, you are using that same weapon right now. Every time you learn a new word, every time you listen carefully, every time you speak with confidence. By 1961, Mandela had decided to help create a new group called Umkhonto we Sizwe, which means Spear of the Nation. It was the armed branch of the ANC. Mandela and his friends were sentenced to life in prison. Life in prison, just for wanting freedom. He was taken to a place called Robben Island, a small, cold, windy island near Cape Town. There, he would spend 18 long years behind bars. Can you imagine? 18 years. That's almost 2 decades, in a tiny cell working in a quarry with little food, no bed, and only a bucket for a toilet. But Mandela never lost his dignity. He never stopped learning. He studied through distance education. He read books. He even learned Afrikaans, the language of his oppressors, because he believed understanding your enemy is part of defeating hate. Repeat after me. I will not let my circumstances break me. I will grow, even in hard times. Excellent. That is the spirit of Mandela. Other prisoners said that when Mandela entered the prison, it felt like light entered too. He was calm, disciplined, and respectful. He organized study groups and taught younger prisoners how to read, write, and debate. The guards respected him, even though they were supposed to hate him. One guard later said, "He made us feel human." Now think about that. A man locked behind bars, yet still able to inspire others to be better people. That's real power. That's emotional intelligence. That's something we can all learn from. Sometimes, when life feels hard or unfair, remember Mandela in his cell, reading by a dim light, dreaming of a free South Africa. Remember that your situation today doesn't define your future. Your mindset does. Say this with me. My future is bigger than my current problems. Beautiful. Keep that in your heart. And even though Mandela was in prison, the world outside began to change. People around the world started to protest against apartheid. They refused to buy South African products. They marched in cities like London, New York, and Paris, carrying signs that said, "Free Nelson Mandela." His name became a symbol of hope for millions. Mandela couldn't see those protests, but he heard about them. And when he did, he smiled. He said, "They can imprison my body, but never my spirit." Repeat that. They can imprison my body, but never my spirit. That's the voice of a leader who refuses to break. And my friend, that's the voice you must remember whenever life tests you, in your studies, your work, or your dreams. Never let anyone imprison your spirit. Mandela spent many long years on Robben Island, but instead of becoming bitter, he became wiser. The cold walls could not freeze his heart. The heavy stones he carried could not crush his hope. Every day he woke up early, cleaned his tiny cell, and walked out with dignity. The guards tried to break him, but they could not. He said, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." Let's say that together. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Beautiful. That sentence can guide you through your own challenges too. Mandela's life in prison was extremely hard. The prisoners were forced to work in a limestone quarry under the hot African sun. The bright white stone reflected the sunlight so strongly that it damaged Mandela's eyes forever. Even today, in old photographs, you can see that his eyes often looked sensitive to light. Yet he never complained. He used those long days to think, to reflect, and to plan for the future. He and the other prisoners created what they called the University of Robben Island. Each prisoner taught something to the others. Some taught history, others taught politics or philosophy. Mandela, being a lawyer, taught law and leadership. He believed learning was a way to stay free inside, even if you were locked up outside. Repeat after me, learning keeps my spirit free. That's right. And that is exactly what you're doing today by learning English through his story. Mandela also believed in discipline. Even though he was in a tiny cell, he exercised every day, running in place, doing push-ups, and keeping himself healthy. He said that controlling your body helps you control your mind. That's a great lesson for life. If you can't change your situation, you can still control how you respond to it. Let's learn some vocabulary from this part. Discipline, the ability to control yourself and stay focused. Reflect, to think carefully about something. Dignity, behaving with self-respect even in hard times. Now repeat, discipline helps me stay strong. I take time to reflect on my life. I keep my dignity no matter what happens. Excellent. Those are powerful words for building confidence and calmness. Mandela's family also suffered while he was in prison. His wife, Winnie Mandela, faced police harassment, house arrest, and constant surveillance. His children grew up without their father. Mandela once said that prison doesn't just punish the prisoner, it punishes the whole family. Yet he stayed strong for them. He wrote letters full of love and encouragement, even when most of them were censored by the guards. In one of his letters he wrote, "Do not look at my life as a tragedy. Look at it as a challenge to rise above your circumstances." Say it with me. I can rise above my circumstances. Perfect. Because no matter where you are or what you face, your spirit can rise higher. Over time, Mandela became a legend even inside prison. New prisoners who arrived would whisper his name with respect. He helped them adapt, encouraged them to study, and reminded them that their struggle was not for revenge, but for freedom and equality. There is a story from Robben Island that shows Mandela's character. One day, a young prisoner was insulted and beaten by a guard. The next day, Mandela approached that same guard calmly and said, "I know you were under orders, but one day South Africa will be free, and you will be treated with the same fairness that you denied us today." The guard was shocked. Years later, that same man admitted that Mandela's words changed his heart. This is the magic of true leadership, turning anger into understanding. Repeat after me. True strength is kindness under pressure. Wonderful. That's something worth remembering. By the late 1970s, the world began to pay more attention to the injustice of apartheid. People from many countries protested, signed petitions, and called for Mandela's release. Musicians wrote songs about him. Students wore badges that said, "Free Mandela." Even though he couldn't see it, Mandela's message had traveled far beyond the prison walls. Inside the prison, Mandela continued to negotiate with guards and prison officials. He didn't shout or threaten. Instead, he used logic, patience, and respect. He knew that even the men who locked him up were also prisoners of their own fear. He believed that real freedom meant freeing both the oppressed and the oppressor from hatred. Let's take a short speaking practice. Repeat slowly. Freedom means freeing both the oppressed and the oppressor. Now explain it in your own words. Freedom is not only about getting power, it's about creating understanding. Beautiful. In 1982, after nearly 2 decades on Robben Island, Mandela and some of his fellow leaders were moved to another prison, Pollsmoor Prison, in Cape Town. The government hoped that separating them would weaken their influence. But it had the opposite effect. Mandela gained more contact with senior officials and began secret talks about ending apartheid. Imagine that. A man who had been locked up for 20 years was now secretly negotiating peace with the same government that imprisoned him. That's leadership through patience and vision. Mandela said, "If you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner." Say that with me. If you want peace, work with your enemy. Excellent. That's not just politics. That's wisdom for life. By this time, Mandela was over 60 years old. Many people might have felt tired, angry, or hopeless. But Mandela never gave up. He always believed that one day South Africa would be free. He kept hope alive, not just for himself, but for millions of people who looked up to him. Outside the prison walls, the world was changing. The 1980s brought strong international pressure against South Africa. The country faced economic sanctions and isolation. Inside South Africa, protests grew stronger and violence spread. The government realized that the old system could not survive forever. In 1985, the South African president offered Mandela freedom on one condition: he had to publicly reject violence and stop political activities. Mandela refused. He said, "What freedom am I being offered while the organization of the people remains banned? Only free men can negotiate. That's integrity." Repeat that word: integrity, doing what is right even when it's difficult. Say this sentence: integrity means standing by my values. Beautiful. Mandela stayed in prison because he would not betray his principles. He preferred to wait for true freedom, not a false one. As the years passed, the world's demand to free Mandela grew louder. Leaders from all continents, including presidents, prime ministers, and artists, spoke out for him. There were concerts, rallies, and campaigns, all with one message: free Nelson Mandela. And finally, in the late 1980s, the South African government began to understand that change was inevitable. Mandela's calm leadership and moral strength made it clear that he was the only person who could lead the country into a new era. In 1988, he was moved again, this time to Victor Verster prison, where conditions were better. He had a small house where he could receive visitors and continue secret talks with the government. He was now 70 years old, but his spirit was as strong as ever. He often said, "There is no easy walk to freedom anywhere." Say it with me: there is no easy walk to freedom anywhere. Perfect. And on February 11, 1990, after 27 years in prison, Nelson Mandela finally walked out, free at last. The world watched on television as he held his wife's hand and smiled to the cheering crowd. People were crying, singing, and dancing in the streets. Mandela's face was calm. He said, "I stand here before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people." After nearly 3 decades behind bars, he came out with no hatred, only love, forgiveness, and purpose. Let's pause here and reflect. Say this: forgiveness is stronger than revenge. Yes, and that's what made Nelson Mandela one of the greatest humans who ever lived. When Nelson Mandela finally stepped out of prison on February 11, 1990, the world held its breath. For 27 long years, people had waited for this moment. Yet the man who walked out that day was not bitter, not angry, and not broken. He was calm, smiling, and full of hope. Mandela had entered prison as a young man, and he returned as a wise elder, ready to lead his nation toward freedom. As he took his first steps outside, he said to himself, "As I walked out the door toward my freedom, I knew that if I did not leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison." Let's say that together. If I don't let go of hate, I am not truly free. Beautiful. That's one of the most powerful lessons in life. True freedom begins in your heart. That day, the streets of South Africa exploded with joy. Thousands of people shouted his name, singing, dancing, and waving flags. For them, Mandela was not just a man. He was a symbol of hope, a father of the nation. The world's cameras followed his every move. Reporters wanted to know, would he call for revenge? Would he want to punish those who had imprisoned him for so long? But Mandela's first speech as a free man surprised everyone. Standing before a massive crowd in Cape Town, he said, "I stand here before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people. Today, the time for healing of wounds has come." Healing. That was his message. Not anger, not violence, but healing. Repeat after me. Healing begins when we forgive. Yes, very good. That's how Mandela began to rebuild his country, not with weapons, but with words, wisdom, and compassion. Soon after his release, Mandela returned to his work with the African National Congress, ANC. He began negotiations with the South African government to end apartheid. It was not easy. Many people didn't trust each other. Some still wanted revenge, while others wanted to keep the old system. Mandela had to be patient, smart, and strong. He met with President F.W. de Klerk, who also realized that South Africa could not survive without change. Together, Mandela and de Klerk began the long, complicated process of creating a new South Africa, one where everyone could have equal rights. They faced many challenges, violent protests, political divisions, and deep pain from the past. But Mandela never gave up. He believed that peace was possible if people could learn to listen to one another. Let's practice some new vocabulary, negotiate, to discuss and find an agreement. Reconciliation, the act of making peace after conflict. Compromise, finding a middle way where both sides give something up. Now repeat. We must negotiate to find peace. Reconciliation heals a broken society. A good compromise helps everyone move forward. Excellent. Mandela used all three of these skills every day. His patience was legendary. Even when some of his supporters grew impatient and angry, he reminded them, our enemy is not a person. Our enemy is injustice. Say that with me. Our enemy is not a person. Our enemy is injustice. Perfect. That's a sentence worth remembering whenever you feel angry at someone. Focus on what's wrong, not who's wrong. As months passed, the world watched in admiration. Mandela met people who once called him a terrorist, and he shook their hands. He smiled at the guards who once locked his cell. He showed forgiveness in action. In 1993, his efforts were recognized when he and F.W. de Klerk were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for peacefully ending apartheid. Imagine that moment. Two men who had once been enemies, standing together on the world's biggest stage, sharing the same prize for peace. Mandela said in his acceptance speech, "We live with the hope that as she battles to remake herself, South Africa will be like a microcosm of the new world that is striving to be born." That's deep. It means he believed that South Africa's journey from hate to harmony could inspire the whole world. Repeat after me. Peace is built one act of kindness at a time. Excellent. And that's exactly what Mandela continued to do. Then, in 1994, something incredible happened. South Africa held its first democratic election where every adult could vote, regardless of race. For the first time in history, black South Africans had a voice. Lines of people stretched for miles, waiting for hours under the hot sun, just to cast their first vote. Many cried as they put their ballots in the box. They were voting for freedom, equality, and a new beginning. And when the results came in, the impossible had happened. Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa. Can you imagine how powerful that moment was? The same man who had spent 27 years in prison now stood as the leader of the nation that once imprisoned him. History had turned full circle. Let's celebrate that with this sentence. No matter how long it takes, justice will rise. Say it again. Justice will rise. Yes, and that's true for your own goals too. Sometimes progress feels slow, but if you stay committed, it comes. Mandela's inauguration in May 1994 was a day of pure emotion. Leaders from all over the world came to Pretoria to see him take the oath. As he raised his hand and said, "So help me God," people wept. Airplanes flew overhead in salute. Choirs sang in every language. The world saw not just a political event, but a moral victory. In his first speech as president, Mandela said something unforgettable. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. Repeat that with me. Never again shall one person oppress another. Beautiful. That's what democracy and equality truly mean. As president, Mandela faced enormous challenges. The country was deeply divided. The economy was struggling. Many people wanted revenge. But Mandela's leadership was based on unity. He often visited poor neighborhoods, spoke with children, and met former enemies with kindness. He created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, where victims and perpetrators of apartheid could share their stories. It was painful, but it helped the country heal. Let's learn some more vocabulary. Victim, someone who has been hurt by an action or event. Perpetrator, a person who committed a harmful act. Healing, the process of becoming whole again. Now repeat. Healing takes honesty and courage. The truth sets people free. Forgiveness builds a better future. Excellent. That's exactly what Mandela believed. He once said, "Courageous people do not fear forgiving for the sake of peace." Say it with me. Courageous people forgive for peace. During his presidency, Mandela made sure every South African, black, white, rich or poor, felt included. He invited his former jailers to his inauguration. He wore the green and gold colors of the South African rugby team, which had once been seen as a symbol of white pride. When the team won the 1995 Rugby World Cup, Mandela appeared on the field wearing the team's jersey, smiling and shaking the captain's hand. The crowd, mostly white, began to chant, "Nelson! Nelson! Nelson!" That moment became a symbol of national unity. One white player said later, "He made us feel that we were all part of South Africa, not just a team." Repeat this with me. A true leader unites people. Exactly. Mandela's actions spoke louder than any speech. He also focused on improving education, housing, and healthcare. He launched programs to reduce poverty and to help people learn new skills. He believed that every child deserved the chance to go to school. He said, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children." Say that with me. A society is judged by how it treats its children. Wonderful. Mandela's time as president was not perfect. No leader's time ever is. There were still problems, crime, inequality, and poverty. But he never stopped believing that change was possible. He often said, "After climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb." Repeat that. There are always more hills to climb. Yes. That means even when we achieve success, we must keep growing, learning, and moving forward. After serving one term as president, Mandela decided not to run again. He believed leadership was about service, not power. He said, "I want to rest, to spend time with my family, and to let new leaders continue the journey." His humility was a lesson to all. True leaders know when to step aside so others can grow. When Nelson Mandela stepped down from the presidency in 1999, the world admired him even more. Most politicians want to hold on to power, but Mandela believed that leadership meant knowing when to let go. He said, "I have done what I could. Now it is time for others to continue the work." Repeat after me. True leaders know when to let go. Perfect. That is one of the many lessons his life teaches us, that greatness comes not from how long you lead, but how deeply you serve. After leaving office, Mandela didn't disappear from public life. He continued to work for peace, education, and human rights. He started the Nelson Mandela Foundation, which focused on social justice, equality, and access to education. He spent time visiting schools, meeting young people, and speaking at international events. He believed that the future belonged to the youth. He said, "The youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow." Say it with me. The youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow. Excellent. And if you are young or young at heart, remember that message. You have the power to shape the world. Mandela often spoke about the importance of forgiveness, kindness, and humility. He used to say, "A good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination." It means that intelligence and compassion together can change the world. He also said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies." Repeat that one slowly. Resentment is like drinking poison yourself. Yes, it hurts you more than anyone else. That's why Mandela always chose forgiveness over hatred. Even in retirement, Mandela never stopped inspiring people. He traveled around the world, meeting leaders, artists, and children. Wherever he went, he carried a message of unity and hope. He often wore colorful shirts, called Madiba shirts, instead of suits. They became his signature style, showing that he was comfortable with who he was. He didn't need power to have influence. His character spoke louder than any title. Let's learn a few words from this part. Resentment, holding anger for a long time. Compassion, kindness and understanding for others. Humility, being modest and not thinking you are better than others. Now repeat, resentment hurts me more than others. Compassion makes me strong. Humility shows true greatness. Wonderful. Mandela also became a global voice for fighting diseases, especially HIV and AIDS, which had affected many people in South Africa. He had lost his own son to the illness in 2005, and instead of hiding it, he spoke about it openly to reduce the shame around it. He said, AIDS is no longer just a disease. It is a human rights issue. That courage to speak about painful topics made people respect him even more. He always used his pain to help others heal. One of Mandela's most powerful qualities was his ability to connect with everyone, from presidents to children. There's a famous story about a small girl who once met him and was too shy to speak. Mandela knelt down, smiled and whispered, "Don't be afraid. You and I are equal. Isn't that beautiful?" Let's repeat it. You and I are equal. Exactly. He made every person feel seen and valued. Mandela believed that equality should not just exist in laws, but also in hearts. He used to say, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, or his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love." Say it slowly with me. If people can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. That's one of his most famous quotes, and one of the truest lessons about humanity. As he grew older, Mandela began to spend more time with his family. He enjoyed the simple things, walking in the garden, playing with his grandchildren, and reading. After years of fighting and sacrifice, he deserved peace. Yet people around the world continued to look to him for wisdom. Journalists, students, and leaders often asked for his advice. When someone once asked him how he managed to forgive those who imprisoned him for 27 years, Mandela smiled and said, "When I walked out of that gate, I knew that if I did not forgive them, I would still be in prison." Repeat after me. Forgiveness is the key to freedom. Perfect. That is the secret to emotional freedom, letting go of hate so that love can enter. Mandela's humility also showed in how he treated others. When he met people, he listened more than he spoke. He remembered names, thanked everyone personally, and respected all. His personal assistant once said he greeted the cleaning staff before he greeted the presidents. That's leadership through humanity. Say this, respect everyone, no matter their position. Wonderful. That's how Mandela lived his values every day. In 2009, the United Nations declared July 18th, Nelson Mandela's birthday, as Nelson Mandela International Day, a day to celebrate his life and encourage people to spend at least 67 minutes doing something good for others. 1 minute for each year he spent fighting for justice. People clean parks, help the poor, visit hospitals, or simply share kindness. Mandela once said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others." Say it with me. Life is about making a difference. Isn't that powerful? It reminds us that the real value of life is not in what we get, but in what we give. Every small act of kindness creates ripples of change. Let's pause for a little reflection practice. I want you to answer this quietly. What can you do today to make someone's life a little better? Maybe help a friend, smile at a stranger, practice English with someone who's learning. Every act counts. Repeat this. I will use my time to do good. Even after stepping away from public life, Mandela remained a symbol of hope. His health began to decline in his later years, but he continued to inspire. When asked about his legacy, he said, "I am not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying." That quote shows his humility. He didn't see himself as perfect. He just tried his best every day. Say this, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to keep trying. Exactly. That's the secret to progress in anything, English, work, or life itself. Mandela also loved to laugh. He had a warm sense of humor. One story tells of a time when a bodyguard accidentally bumped into him and apologized nervously. Mandela laughed and said, "You can't protect me if you're afraid of me." That's the kind of gentle, wise humor that made people love him. He believed that joy was a form of strength. Even after all he had suffered, he smiled easily. He danced at events, hugged children, and made jokes. He said, "Do not judge me by my success. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. Say it with me. Success means getting up every time I fall." Yes, and that's something every learner, every dreamer, and every human being should remember. By the early 2010s, Mandela had become a global grandfather, a symbol of goodness. He received hundreds of awards, honors, and degrees from around the world, but he remained humble. He said, "It's not me, it's the people of South Africa who should be honored." That's humility again, giving credit to others instead of taking it all for yourself. As Nelson Mandela entered his final years, he often reflected on his life's journey, from a young boy in canoe herding cattle, to a freedom fighter, to a prisoner, and finally, a president loved around the world. He once said, "What I have learned in life is that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." Repeat after me, courage is not the absence of fear. Excellent. Mandela's courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about facing fear and walking forward anyway. In 2010, South Africa hosted the FIFA World Cup, the first time it had ever been held in Africa. It was a proud moment for the entire continent. When Mandela appeared at the closing ceremony, smiling and waving to the cheering crowd, people cried with joy. It felt as if his dream of a united South Africa had come true, at least for that moment. Let's say this together. Unity makes dreams possible. Beautiful. Mandela's health began to weaken in the years that followed. He spent more time at home in Johannesburg and in his village of Kunu, surrounded by family. Yet even in his quiet days, the world continued to look to him for wisdom and hope. His words were shared in classrooms, speeches, and even songs. He had become more than a man. He had become a message. Say this: hope can live forever through our actions. Let's learn some vocabulary here. Triumph, a great victory or success. Unity, coming together as one. Legacy, what we leave behind for others. Now repeat. Triumph comes after struggle. Unity makes us strong. My legacy is kindness. Mandela's final years were peaceful, but also marked by reflection. He often spoke about the importance of forgiveness, community, and leadership with purpose. He once said, "A leader is like a shepherd. He stays behind the flock, letting the most nimble go out ahead, whereupon the others follow." That means a true leader guides from behind, giving others space to shine. Say it with me. A true leader helps others shine. Isn't that a beautiful image? Mandela didn't see leadership as control. He saw it as service. He believed that helping others succeed was the highest form of success. In 2013, on December 5th, Nelson Mandela passed away at the age of 95. The world mourned deeply. Millions of people, from presidents to schoolchildren, paid tribute. His memorial service in Johannesburg was attended by more than 90 world leaders. They came not just to honor a man, but to honor what he represented: forgiveness, peace, and unity. Barack Obama, then President of the United States, said in his speech, "He no longer belongs to us, he belongs to the ages." Say it softly with me. He belongs to the ages. Mandela's funeral was filled with songs, prayers, and dancing, because in African tradition, a great life is celebrated with joy as well as tears. People sang the songs of freedom he had loved. Some cried, others smiled, remembering his laughter and warmth. It was not just a goodbye, but a thank you. A thank you to a man who gave his entire life to making others free. Let's pause for a moment of reflection. What would you like to be remembered for? Mandela said, It is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it. Repeat, it is in my hands to create a better world. That quote reminds us that we don't need to be famous to make a difference. Every small action, kindness, honesty, learning, helping, builds a better world. Even after his passing, Mandela's influence continues to guide people everywhere. His books, especially Long Walk to Freedom, are read by students around the world. His words are quoted in speeches and shared on social media. His image, with that bright smile, is a symbol of endurance, courage, and hope. Do you remember what endurance means? It means the ability to keep going even when things are hard. Say it with me. I will keep going even when it's hard. Perfect. That's the Mandela spirit. Let's practice some useful English phrases inspired by his life. Stand up for what's right. Never lose hope. Forgive and move forward. Change starts with me. Now you. Repeat each one slowly and clearly. Wonderful. You're not just learning English, you're learning values that build character. After Mandela's death, the Nelson Mandela Foundation continued his work. It promotes education, health, equality, and dialogue between communities. Every year, on Mandela Day, millions of people around the world perform acts of kindness, feeding the poor, cleaning public spaces, or teaching children. These acts are Mandela's dream in action. They show that his message lives on. Repeat this. Small actions can change the world. Yes, because every great change starts small. One smile, one kind word, one act of courage. Let's look at another beautiful quote from him. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. That's one of his most famous lines, and one that's especially meaningful for English learners like you. Say it with me. Education changes the world. Excellent. And by learning English today, you are already changing your future. Mandela loved education. He always said that knowledge was the key to freedom, not just political freedom, but mental freedom. When you can read, write, and express yourself, no one can control your mind. Even in prison, he read as much as he could. He studied law, history, and literature. So here's a question for you. What are you learning right now that will free your mind? Maybe it's English, maybe it's patience, maybe it's kindness. Whatever it is, keep learning. Say this: learning is my path to freedom. Beautiful. You sound like Mandela himself. In South Africa today, children grow up learning about him. His face appears on their money, and his story is in their textbooks. But more importantly, his values live in their hearts. Teachers encourage students to think like Mandela, to be brave, kind, and fair. That's the real legacy of a leader, when people continue his mission without being told to. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine you're sitting under a tree in Kunu, Mandela's hometown. The air is warm. Children are laughing nearby. You're reading his words, feeling peaceful and inspired. You look up at the sky and think, if he could forgive and build peace after everything he suffered, then I can face my own challenges too. That's the feeling his story gives, hope mixed with strength. Let's repeat some key lessons from his life. Forgive, even when it's hard. Serve others before yourself. Keep learning, no matter your age. Speak up for what's right. Beautiful. You're not only improving your English, you're also improving your mindset. Mandela's story teaches that no matter where you come from, you can rise above pain and become a light for others. He wasn't born powerful. He became powerful through his choices. He wasn't born wise. He became wise through experience. And he wasn't born free. He made freedom possible for millions. Say this: I can rise above my struggles. When people look at Mandela's life, they see that change takes time. It doesn't happen in a day. It took him 27 years in prison, decades of activism, and a lifetime of patience. So if you're learning English and sometimes feel slow progress, don't worry. Great things take time. Repeat, great things take time. If Mandela could wait 27 years for freedom, you can wait a little while to master English, right? Exactly. Step by step, word by word, you'll get there. So keep practicing. Read stories like this one. Listen carefully. Repeat phrases aloud. Write down new words. Mandela's success came from discipline, and your success in English will come from the same. Say it with me. Discipline creates success. That's it. That's the spirit we need to finish strong. After his passing, Nelson Mandela's story didn't fade away. It began to shine even brighter. Around the world, people continued to quote his words, teach his lessons, and live by his values. His face appeared on murals, books, T-shirts, and posters. His name became a symbol of freedom and forgiveness. And in every country, people found a piece of themselves in his journey. The courage to stand up, the patience to wait, and the strength to forgive. In schools, teachers began to use his story to inspire young learners. They read about how he studied secretly in prison, how he believed education could open doors, and how he never stopped learning. They tell students, if Mandela could study in prison, you can study anywhere. Let's repeat that together. If Mandela could study in prison, I can study anywhere. Perfect. Because learning isn't about the place, it's about the heart. Mandela believed deeply in the power of young people. He once said, sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. You can be that great generation. Say it with me. I can be that great generation. Excellent. He wanted every person, no matter how small they thought they were, to believe that they could change the world through kindness, honesty, and hard work. His message reached beyond politics. It reached into homes, schools, and even businesses. People began to ask themselves, how can I lead like Mandela? That question inspired a new kind of leadership, one based on humility, listening, and service. Leaders began to visit communities, shake hands with the poor, and talk with children. Mandela taught them that true power lies not in control, but in compassion. Repeat this. True power is compassion. Let's learn a few words from this section. Mural, a large painting on a wall. Generation, a group of people born around the same time. Compassion, care and kindness for others. Now say, my generation can make a difference. Compassion is my strength. Beautiful. In South Africa, his dream of unity continues to grow, even though the country still faces challenges, poverty, inequality, and unemployment. But his message of hope remains alive. Many South Africans say, we walk in Madiba's footsteps. Madiba, you remember, was his clan name, a name filled with love and respect. When people use it, they feel close to him, like family. Say this, I walk in the footsteps of kindness. Mandela's story also teaches us something about communication, something very important for English learners like you. Even when he was angry, he spoke calmly. Even when he disagreed, he listened. He said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. Let's repeat that. When I speak your language, I speak to your heart. That's exactly why learning English, or any language, is powerful. It opens doors to people's hearts. It builds bridges between cultures. It helps us understand one another. So when you practice English, remember that you're not just learning grammar, you're learning connection. Say this, I am learning to connect with the world. Excellent. Keep that thought close to your heart. Now let's talk about something Mandela valued deeply, forgiveness. He often said that forgiveness isn't just for others, it's for yourself. By forgiving, you free your own heart. He proved this by forgiving the very people who hurt him. He even invited his former prison guards to his inauguration. Can you imagine? The same men who watched him suffer were now his guests of honor. Say this, forgiveness is freedom. Beautifully said. When people asked him how he could forgive so easily, he smiled and said, because hate is too heavy a burden to carry. Repeat that. Hate is too heavy a burden. Yes, it weighs us down. Forgiveness makes us light and free. Mandela's story is full of small miracles like that, moments where he chose love over hate, peace over revenge, and unity over division. And those choices changed not only his life, but the destiny of an entire nation. He once said, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. Say it with me. When I shine, others shine too. Exactly. Your courage gives courage to others. Your learning inspires someone else to learn. Your kindness teaches others to be kind. Now, I want you to take a deep breath. Think about your own life. What challenge are you facing right now? What dream are you working toward? Maybe learning English feels hard some days. Maybe you're worried about work, school, or your future. But remember, so was Mandela, and he didn't give up. Say it softly. I will not give up. Good. That's your Mandela moment, the moment you choose to keep going even when it's hard. Let's pause and imagine a conversation between you and Mandela. He smiles warmly and says, "My friend, your journey is just beginning. Keep learning, keep loving, and never forget that you are powerful beyond measure." And you reply, "Thank you, Madiba. I will do my best." Doesn't that feel amazing? Because in a way, you are continuing his mission, spreading understanding through learning. Mandela's message goes beyond borders and beyond time. He showed that one person, no matter how small or powerless they seem, can start a wave of change. You too have that power to influence your world, your friends, your family, and even strangers you meet online. Repeat this proudly. I can make a difference. When we think about English learning, Mandela's story gives us the perfect example. He never stopped improving himself. Even in the hardest places he studied. Even in darkness he looked for light. That's how you should approach your English too, with patience, practice, and hope. Say it. I will learn patiently. I will practice daily. I will never lose hope. Perfect. That's the energy you need to keep growing. Mandela's life reminds us that change doesn't happen overnight. He spent 27 years behind bars, and when he came out, he didn't seek revenge. He sought peace. That's emotional strength. That's wisdom. So if you ever feel impatient or tired while studying English, think of Mandela. Imagine him sitting quietly in his cell, reading, writing, dreaming of a better tomorrow. That same patience lives in you. Say it with me. Patience is power. Exactly. Because patience builds strength and understanding. And now, as we near the end of his story, remember this. Mandela never said he was special. He said, "I am an ordinary man who became extraordinary because of circumstances." That means every one of us has the potential for greatness if we choose to rise when life challenges us. Say this proudly. I can be extraordinary. You absolutely can. His story shows us that English words like freedom, forgiveness, and hope are not just vocabulary, they're values. They are lessons to live by. So as you learn English, don't just remember the meanings, feel them. Live them. Repeat one last time for this section. Freedom begins in the heart. Forgiveness heals the soul. Hope never dies. Beautiful. You're doing amazing. When we reach the end of Nelson Mandela's story, it doesn't feel like an ending at all. It feels like the beginning of something new, a reminder that his journey continues through each one of us. Every time someone stands up for justice, forgives instead of hating, or learns something new to improve their life, Mandela's spirit lives on. He once said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Let's repeat that slowly. It always seems impossible until it's done. Wonderful. That simple line carries the strength of his entire life, the belief that no mountain is too high if you keep climbing. Now take a deep breath. Think about the challenges you've faced. Maybe you've been discouraged. Maybe people told you you can't do it. But look at Mandela. He faced walls, bars, and chains, and yet he kept going. He turned pain into purpose. Say it with me. I will turn pain into purpose. Excellent. That's the first step toward greatness. Mandela's legacy is not just in history books. It's in the small, quiet actions of ordinary people who choose goodness every day. A teacher who helps her students believe in themselves. A young person who speaks out against unfairness. A worker who treats everyone with respect. A learner like you, practicing English to connect with the world. These are the people continuing Mandela's dream. Say this. I am part of the dream. Let's look at a few final vocabulary words that describe his life. Perseverance, never giving up, even when it's hard. Integrity, doing what's right, even when no one is watching. Legacy, the lasting impact of your life. Now repeat after me. Perseverance gives me strength. Integrity is my guide. My legacy will be love. Excellent. These words describe Mandela perfectly, and they can describe you too. Mandela's life teaches us that even one person, armed with hope and courage, can transform an entire world. You don't need to be rich, famous, or powerful to make a difference. You just need to care deeply, to act kindly, and to believe that your efforts matter. He said, "We can change the world and make it a better place. It is in your hands to make a difference." Say that proudly. It is in my hands to make a difference. Yes, it's in your hands. Every time you choose peace instead of anger, every time you learn something new, every time you lift someone's spirit, you're shaping the world around you. Now let's connect Mandela's lessons to your English learning journey. Learning a language can feel difficult sometimes, right? You may feel shy, afraid of mistakes, or worried that others speak better than you. But remember what Mandela showed us. Progress is not about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to start and patient enough to continue. Say this: I'm brave enough to start. I'm patient enough to continue. That's it. Just like Mandela's long walk to freedom, your journey to mastering English is made up of small, steady steps. Every lesson, every word, every conversation brings you closer. So never say I can't. Say I will. Repeat I will. Good. That one word can change everything. Mandela often spoke about hope, the quiet, steady flame that kept him going in the darkest nights. He said, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." Say that with me. My choices reflect my hopes, not my fears. Beautiful. Because when we choose hope, we choose life. We choose growth. We choose peace. He also reminded us to laugh, to enjoy life, to dance even in the rain. After all, he said, there is nothing like returning to a place that remains unchanged to find the ways in which you yourself have altered. That means that when we look back, we realize how much we've grown. You too have grown through this story. Your English has improved. Your heart has expanded. You understand more, not just about Mandela, but about yourself. Say this: I have grown. I am learning. I am proud of my progress. Wonderful. You've earned that pride. Mandela's story ends in peace, surrounded by love, but his message keeps echoing across generations. Children still sing songs about him. Books still tell his story. Leaders still quote his words. And you, right now, are part of that living legacy, because you've taken time to listen, to learn, and to feel inspired. Say this: his legacy lives in me. Now let's summarize his biggest lessons, not just for English learners, but for everyone. Forgive, even when it's hard. Lead with humility. Keep learning and growing. Stand up for justice. Never lose hope. Serve others with love. Believe that one person can make a difference. Repeat each one slowly. Let each word sink in. These are not just rules. They're ways to live a beautiful, meaningful life. Mandela's life reminds us that strength doesn't come from anger, but from kindness. That true power is not about control, but about compassion. That freedom is not only political, it's emotional, mental, and spiritual. When we free ourselves from fear, hate, and doubt, we become unstoppable. Say this: I am free from fear. I am free from hate. I am free to grow. Yes, that's the real meaning of freedom. Before we close this story, let's imagine one last scene. You're walking through a bright field in South Africa. The sun is shining, and the air smells of freedom. You see children running, people laughing, and in the distance, a statue of Nelson Mandela. His hand raised high, his face smiling. Birds fly across the sky. You stop for a moment, look up and whisper, "Thank you, Madiba," because now you understand he didn't just free his people. He freed hearts all around the world. He freed the belief that kindness is stronger than cruelty, that light is stronger than darkness, that love is stronger than hate. Repeat this softly. Kindness is stronger than cruelty. Light is stronger than darkness. Love is stronger than hate. Perfect. That's the message he wanted us to carry forever. Now, as this English learning journey comes to an end, I want you to take one last lesson from Mandela. Never stop learning. Never stop forgiving. Never stop believing in yourself. Say this proudly. I will keep learning. I will keep forgiving. I believe in myself. You've done something beautiful today. You've learned English, not just through vocabulary and grammar, but through courage, compassion, and history. You've practiced speaking, thinking, and feeling in English, just as Mandela would have wanted, with purpose, with passion, and with peace. Remember, learning English is not about being perfect. It's about expressing your truth and connecting with others. It's about opening new doors, dreaming new dreams, and building bridges across cultures. And now, after this story, you can do that with confidence and heart. So as we close, let's say one last time together. Education is the most powerful weapon to change the world. I will use my education to spread peace. I will walk my own long road to freedom. Beautiful, truly beautiful. You've completed this journey. Not just a story about Nelson Mandela, but a story about the power of learning, forgiveness, and hope. And remember, every word you learn, every sentence you speak, every act of kindness you show, all of it makes the world a little brighter. Keep learning, keep shining, and keep walking your long walk to freedom.